Hey, folks, welcome to another edition of Broken Brains with your host, Bruce Parkman, sponsored by the Parkman Foundation, where we talk about the issue of repetitive brain trauma in the form of repetitive head impacts and how they affect the minds and mental health of our athletes and kids, and repetitive blast exposure and how it impacts the brains of our veterans. And we bring on, parents and coaches and researchers, doctors, authors, in order to give you that 360-degree look at this problem, because this is not taught in our nursing, athletic training, psychological, medical, or suicide prevention courses. And we as a society are pretty illiterate when it comes to this problem. So it's up to you to become informed so you can make those decisions necessary for the people you love. Our guest today is another amazing guest to come on the show. Not only is she a guest, she's a friend, and she runs an amazing foundation that you all need to be aware of. Tatiana McCall Wimberly, business leader, education, and brain health advocate. She is a seasoned business leader, educator, and passionate advocate for brain health and youth football safety. As the owner of McCall Diversified Enterprises, she brings over 20 years of experience in business management, marketing, public relations, and event consulting, overseeing projects across corporate, nonprofit, and government sectors. She also manages the National Black Professional Lobbyist Association annual conference and serves as a senior public relations representative at Northrop Grumman. She is also, unfortunately, the co-founder and president of the RL3 Foundation, created in honor of her late son, Ray Lewis III, who was posthumously diagnosed with stage 2 CTE. Through the foundation, she channels her grief into purpose, advocating for youth football safety, brain health awareness, and meaningful change to how contact sports protect their players. Miss McCall, or Tatiana, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for coming on.
Good afternoon, Bruce. Thank you so much for having me. You had my whole name, my first, middle, last, and married name.
All
You
right.
covered it all.
Ah,
Yes, but thank you so much for having me. It's privilege to be able to be here and have this conversation and share information that is much needed with the world. It's unfortunate that you and I are having to speak from a place of experience, but at the same time, we are doing a good thing in memory of our sons. And so I appreciate the opportunity.
Tatiana, there is no more powerful presence I know in this space than a mom. Whether it's you speaking or Karen talking about her boy, or my wife speaking, it's just so powerful for our audience to understand this from a mom's perspective. But while we're also unfortunately here, we are celebrating two amazing young men. World to know more about Ray III. So why don't you talk to us about Ray? Tell us about this young man, because every time you tell stories about him, I just giggle inside, man. I think it's amazing.
Well, Ray, as we affectionately called him, he was Ray Anthony Lewis III, named after his father, and he was truly one of a kind. And some of the stories that I tell are they are the absolute truth. And to know Ray, you would be to understand that his personality was just bar none. He managed to have all of the positive traits of both his father and I. And so he did meet a stranger. He was a friend to all. He was not a respecter of persons, so he didn't discriminate. That was one of, I think, his superpowers, one of his gifts, that it didn't matter their ethnicity, their nationality, their socioeconomic status, their religion, their political affiliation. None of that mattered to Ray Ray. He always saw the best in everybody, and he had a way of bridging those people with their differences and having a positive impact. So that was definitely what I, call his superpower. He didn't discriminate. It could be a homeless person on the street, or it could be someone, that he encountered, in Canton, celebrating, his dad's Hall of Fame, accomplishments. He just treated everybody the same. He's truly missed. He was just such a large presence that he left such a huge void. He was the loudest thing in the room, always. You would hear
Right.
him before you saw him coming. He was going to challenge you on every thought. He was going to make you, explain why you believed what you believed on anything down from who was the best out of Kobe and LeBron. Like he was just that type of presence. He was kind of in your face and, just challenged you to stand up for what you believe. And he was definitely strong in his beliefs and convictions, and he let you know it. But he was a lover of people, a lover of life, and he just loved kids. He loved football and he loved music. Those were the three things in life he was most passionate about. His last like corporate kind of job was he was working in Oklahoma at a behavioral center as a behavior tech with students with behavioral problems, behavioral issues. And he just loved it. He loved, just kind of being there with them, students as well that had special needs. And it was his gift. Children gravitated to him and he just kind of had a way with them, you know.
Wow. That sounds, I wish I could have met him, man. Yeah. Just, you talk about your boy, the pride of her mom, the things that drove us crazy when they were here, and now they're like our fondest memories.
Yes, if I could just
So
yes, one more time.
one more time. So, I just want to make sure that our audience understands that this is the famous Ray Lewis, the linebacker for the Baltimore Ravens that was Ray's father and your partner.
Yes.
And how did that, I mean, obviously you're a football family. I mean, from the get-go, right?
Yes, we're very much a football family. Ray and I met at the University of Miami. He was playing, I tutored athletes, so I engaged with quite a few of them. I also worked in the sports information department at the University of Miami, where I ran stats and pushed a lot of them for a lot of the awards, the Lombardi Award with Warren Sapp and the Butkus Award for Ray and different things of that nature. So I was around the industry from an academic standpoint and from a professional, standpoint in terms of my student work aspirations. So we became friends and end up having one, two, three sons together over the course of our 14-year relationship and had some great times as he progressed in his career with the NFL and made his accomplishments, ultimately finding that we were, better co-parents and friends than we were partners in life. However, we have a great relationship still. For our children and our grandchildren. So we have two beautiful granddaughters now
Wow.
that we are very proud of. Uh, you know, Ray and Ray had a unique relationship, with that whole namesake. And so there were challenges that came for, with Ray for that. Everybody was always making that comparison, especially when Ray went to the University of Miami as well, where we both attended. And so, those were some things that kind of chartered some of the course in the waters as well. But yeah.
So that means, I mean, your boys grew up like at that, at their father's, football games. And what was it like being an NFL spouse?
Well,
or a partner, but still, being there. I mean, it must have been just an exciting time.
Well, there were definitely exciting moments. But like so we had kids pretty quickly. It's like Ray was born when we were at University of Miami while we were in college. So
Wow.
he
Okay.
was truly, bled orange and green, and so they were around football their whole lives. They didn't know anything but that. So in terms of rearing the children, we commuted back and forth between because we're from Florida as well, Ray and I, and but he was drafted to the Ravens, so we commuted back and forth. We raised the kids in Florida, and so there were the exciting parts on game day, and we're out there and definitely football fanatics, and I'm yelling, I'm screaming, and I'm get it when what have you. But then there are also those regular everyday family, struggles and challenges that you encounter, especially with distance, and rearing children, and then just kind of all that comes with the NFL. So it was a blessing. It afforded us, very, blessed, life and so forth. But it didn't come without its challenges.
Yeah, no doubt. And so, when did like the boys? They probably never thought about any other sport in the world than football, huh?
Well, to be honest, so they were triathletes. They played football, basketball, and they ran track. So they were doing something year round because Ray believed in the cross training, and the different
Yeah.
skills that each of those sports kind of brought to football. And they actually wrestled. Ray wrestled for a while as well because Ray was a state wrestling champion at Kathleen High School. So he truly believed in the aspect of wrestling as well.
I didn't know
So
that. So
they,
he was a state champion
yeah,
wrestler?
yes.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Yes. So the boys wrestled, they ran track, they played football, and they played basketball. When they got to high school, he kind of made them choose. You have to now kind of find a lane that you're going to, put all of your time, energy, and, effort into. Track was always a cross training type, thing for he would have them do hurdles to open their hips and for speed and agility and those type of things. But two of them, the oldest two, Ray and Rashad, they did choose football initially. And Rasan, our youngest, he actually chose basketball and had been recruited for basketball. So he ended up in high school going to a different school that focused on basketball rather than football. But senior year, as the bug would come bite him, the athletic director's like, just come out and play, football. It's your senior year of high school. Just have some fun. So he was like, Mom, can I please play? And I was like, your dad is probably gonna have a fit, because he had chosen basketball. He was in AAU, was on the circuits. We were on the West Coast, but, AAU teams, in Vegas, we were all over, all in AAU. And he had a bad injury his sophomore year. So, Ray didn't want him to overextend and overuse his body. But long story short, he went and played senior year, took his team to the state championship. They lost, but then he got football offers and ended up at UCF.
Okay. And yeah. And so how old were the boys when they started playing?
They were young, so they were about 5 or 6 as soon as they came of age, and we didn't play flag. Mine never played flag. They went right to tackle football. So we started in Pop Warner. Ray did. And, one of the things that, they had that older, lighter kind of thing, because Ray was always solid. So he always ended up having to play up because of his weight. So I think those were additional challenges. He was playing with older, bigger boys,
Yeah.
having to, not being able to, with the weight limits and things that are included in it. So
That's yeah, I mean, I know that when my son was growing up, he had to wrestle up because he was a bigger boy. And these guys would cream him. I mean, they were, they was like, "Come here, Marshmallow," and he's just a big boy, just wanted to help, and he wanted to learn. He did. He got learned pretty hard. So yeah, it's one of the things when we do allow our kids due to their size, or as some guy said earlier, huskiness. My son was a husky
yeah,
boy growing up.
yeah,
It's like we think that putting them up against bigger players is okay. This speed and their experience, they tend to hurt the little guys, man. I mean, so in your journey here, I mean, your boys played as long as my son. I know that my son started like when it came to like apathy and like the evidence of his struggles. It really didn't happen till about the year before, this 11th grade, he died as a senior. Was there any evidence that Ray was struggling at all that you could say, I mean, other than, all right, hey, you're a fine young man. Because I looked at my boys like, well, you're getting ready to join the army. You don't want to spend a lot of time with him. You come up with all these reasons
useless.
not to see it, and whether and then of course, now you look back and like, gosh, was there any indication that Ray might have been having some challenges he just didn't want to tell his mom?
It's hard to say because, in addition to, some of the things that when I look back and, try to figure out was this a sign or indication, like I say, Ray also had that struggle of, trying to find himself and his identity, trying to find his own place independent of, his dad, and going to the University of Miami to college, there was additional pressures and stress on him. So his coping mechanisms, varied, as he was trying to, find a place, with the team and the team, some of them not feeling like he quote unquote belonged because they came from a different place, different neighborhood, different side of the tracks,
Yeah.
and feeling like, he didn't have the same struggle or experience or the same level of commitment or passion, and just not knowing his story. So there were different things things that, he found himself doing in places. And, so I wonder if it was, symptoms and signs of the CTE that early, or if it was just him just trying to find his place in the world. But when it became really evident, he articulated it. He would just outright say, Mom, something's not right with my head. I'm having
Really?
headaches. Yes. And my mother was a critical care nurse. And so he would, let us know that he would have headaches that we couldn't get rid of with simple things like Tylenol or ibuprofen. He would sleep a lot. So there were memory issues. He left everything everywhere. I just stopped giving him house keys because the whole neighborhood was going to have keys to my house. If they found a key and it was going to belong to my house. He couldn't keep a
Sorry.
house key, couldn't keep a wallet, he couldn't keep a driver's license, he could not keep a cell phone. You know, I think that was one of the last things I did is I took him off my cell phone plan because every time I turned around, he was filing a claim for $200 to get a new cell phone because he was losing it. I said, this is not right. Like, so I had to kind of trying to show a little bit of tough love, not really knowing, what all was kind of going into it. But I was like, no, you go get your own plan and you pay your own bills. So when you keep losing this phone, you understand, what that means, but my mom ended up putting him on hers. So I don't,
Of course she did. Your
yeah, of
mom is a
course.
beautiful angel, by the way, man.
Yes, thank you.
We love
She's
to
a
meet her.
blessing.
So, I mean, for our audience out there, let's talk about the peer pressure because my son ended up playing football because his buddy said, "Hey, hey Mac, why don't you come play with us?" And and he's like, "All right, yeah. Hey, Dad, can I play?" I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, of course you can play, but why do you want to play?" It's like, it sounds like fun, right? All my buddies are playing, right? And parents, they're, hopefully after listening to us are a lot more knowledgeable about the impact that these sports can have on their brains. But still, there's going to be enormous peer pressure on their children to play whatever. Having watched your boys go through it, not only just from, being from a different background, but also having, like a father that everybody knows in the country. Like everybody knows who this guy is, right? There's pressure there. And you can, and then of course there's the pressure to play for my team or whatever. Do you have any recommendations for parents to, kind of help their kids, through these challenges and to help them cope with this? Because it is all over the place right now with these children.
My biggest, I think, advice, would be let them be kids. There are enough things in this world that are going to make them grow up and mature faster than they need to. It is a blessing if you have a child that acts their age. Let them be the age that they are. Don't try to live vicariously through them, putting them out there, pushing them into these sports and things, before they're ready, because, we are the ones that introduce these things to our children. They are a product of their environment, the things that we introduce them to, that we expose them to, that we inform them of. So, I mean, we have the power, to influence certain things. Now, sure, there are some kids that they see things and they kind of have their things that they like, their hobbies, but give them a chance to come express to you an interest sometimes. We're so quick to try to introduce them to everything. I am truly guilty of it. Like say they were playing sports, basketball, you could play at 3. So Rasan, my youngest son, he started playing basketball at 3 years old.
Three
Like
years old.
I have home videos that we still watch where he was running down the court, dribbling, playing basketball at 3. So, and what did he really know about basketball at 3? I mean, except for what we showed him, what we exposed him to, so that would be my advice. There's time. And, for all of these families that feel like their children are the way out, they're going to be the savior to their family, that, if they can just get this opportunity to play sports and they'll have a better life if they do, to a degree, but at what cost? So you just want to do all the things that you're supposed to do. Take the preventative measures. Wait till they're 14. Do you put them in a contact or collision sport? If they get an injury, a concussion, make them sit out and heal. If you break an arm or a leg, you're not going to throw your kid back out there with a broken arm or broken leg and tell them to keep playing. So if they have an injury to their brain, you got to let it heal. So just be smart. Be smart and don't be so anxious to grow them up, to live through them, and to make them pave the way for you.
And honestly, Tatiana, what you just said, a lot of parents need to kind of, look at themselves and go, am I guilty of that? Because my son wanted to play rugby because daddy played rugby. I showed him. I always said, look, you got to be active. And I always told my son one thing, I said, look, you're going to be an adult forever. So don't grow up too fast,
Too
man.
fast.
Be a boy, right? You are going to be an adult forever. And I meet so many parents that, we had very good friends and they just kept pushing their children. And my son wanted to be part of the car. Next thing you know, he wants to play all these sports. I'm like, all right, and I never even if I would have understood part of what you and I now know and what every parent should know about the risks of these sports, there is absolutely no way on earth that my son would have been playing more than one of those crazy sports that he'd do, because I would have known the risk. And your whole thing about, we had a British guy come over from the Head Smart campaign, and he
Mhm.
said, I have never met more crazy parents than American parents on what they do with their children. The pressure that they just put on them all by themselves to play sports. And we're all guilty of it to a certain extent, but there are those parents that will not listen, and they will even go further. We've had, cops like, I don't care what you say. My kid's playing ball or whatever. And your point about, your way out. Oh my gosh. I mean, we deal with the Manatee PAL here, and they deal with, economically challenged parents. I mean, folks from all colors that can't get the bus ride to the white side, the west side, where the flag football costs $300 a year or whatever. And when they made the move to go to flag football, the parents freaked out. They're like, what are you doing to my child? That's my, my ticket, my whatever. It's like, no, your kid has a better chance of being a doctor or an architect or, engineer, whatever, than he does playing the NFL. Let's roll these odds and get that out. Yeah.
Yeah, it's 1%. 1%. And if you just think about the state of Florida alone, all the colleges that we have, at Division 1, Division 2, NAIA, HBCUs, all the universities we have just in this one state of Florida. And you think about, how many rounds are in the draft. You got 7 rounds in the draft. You got 33, so teams. You do the math of how many are going to get picked in that draft, and we're just the one state of Florida. You talk about all the other universities, colleges, and all the other states and, throughout the country. And it's just such a slim chance. And I don't say that to kill anybody's dreams. And I don't say that to minimize, people's struggles and realities. What I'm just saying is that you just gotta your children are priceless and no one ever thinks it's going to happen to them. They listen to us, Bruce, and they feel sorry for us. They empathize for us, but they don't ever think it'll be them.
Yeah. No, it's just, like you said, I mean, I always tell people, look, if your son's going to make it in the NFL or the NHL or any L out there, they're going to be showing stuff in high school that nobody else can do. They're going to have the genes, whatever, and we talked to all these high school coaches, and they're like, man, I would hope they would start in high school, because I get these kids with injuries. I get them with bad habits. I get them, and he's like, and they're like, well, I wish they would start in high school. And so your point on 14, being a good age to begin is more than apropos when we start talking about, parents and kids.
And so my husband, Marcus Wimberly, he is a high school coach. So you're bringing up high school coaches and their perspectives. And Ray Ray's passing has also been mind-boggling, and life-changing for him in how he coaches and how he runs his practices and how he responds to any potential, concussions or injuries. His conversations with his trainers on his staff and with his position coaches. It has had an impact on how he coaches, and he's been a head football coach for over 20 years. And that's what we have to have. We have to have these conversations with the people in the positions to do something differently, to change the way the game is played so it's played more safely. Because as you mentioned, we're a football family. I've got 3 sons with Ray Lewis. I'm married to a head football coach who also played in the NFL. And so as a football family, you know, we just want to play it safely. We don't want to eradicate it. We don't want to get rid of the sport. We just want to save lives so that other people don't have to know this reality, 10, 20 years down the road because you thought it was cute and fun, just like I did, and it never ever crossed my mind that I'd be burying my son 22 years later because of it.
No, ma'am. And that's where, like you said, these hard conversations, and thank you for your husband's response, in terms of protecting these other children. Because, I mean, we're just finding out that 80% of the damage that these kids are taking are in practice. And yet, all right, I mean, sports is not just about W's, wins, and losses, right? It's about sport. Sport shouldn't hurt. And, when we look at the CTE brain bank and all the sports that are up there, wrestlers, lacrosse players, rugby players,
Yeah.
soccer players, football players, hockey players. I mean, and then you look at what's not there. Baseball players, basketball players, track stars, golfers, tennis players, swimmers, whatever other sports there are. It is so obvious that involving the head in sport is not healthy. Yet nobody wants sports to go away. And now we know that the NFL really doesn't do contact practice during the week, during the season. It would be great to see, your husband's ability to reduce contact in sports. They had the same thing happen at my son's school. They went and got, guarding casts. They brought in a rugby tackling coach, which is all great. But more importantly, they cut practice down to 2 days a week from 5. All right. That's a 60% reduction in exposure. And, I think that, we're looking at a future where I think we're going to understand this and be able to do a much better job at protecting our kids.
It's those small yet very important things, those changes that can be made that can provide that additional level of safety protection, reduce that risk for our kids. The education piece is going to really continue to play a major role. So organizations, foundations like yours, like mine, the events that we do, your international summit, the RL3 motivation weekend, getting people to come out and engage in those type of activities to get the education, to have a chance to ask questions, because that's my thing. I just try to create a platform, a space, a safe space where people can come and ask questions. No question is dumb. Get an understanding, engage, so that you can then take that information and make informed decisions on how you want to navigate your children and other loved ones that may be in your sphere of influence. So, hopefully people will continue to connect with, both organizations, reach out, ask questions to get information, join us in our effort to try to save lives, one at a time.
You're spot on, because education is so important. So let's talk about that little bill that we got going on here in Florida. Let's talk about that a little bit, because it is all about education. So you want to
Yes.
talk a little
Well,
bit about that bill?
you know, Bruce, this is really all you. I was just ends up kind of being a conduit, here in the 11th hour to try to help, do what I could do from my perspective. So, kudos to you, for drafting the bill, for having the vision, for the importance of having informed consent here in the state of Florida, and the various elements that kind of come along with that, making sure that parents are informed, that they are educated, just like when they're, registering their children to play, and they have to sign paperwork for concussions or for sickle cell, for heat related
Driving a car.
illnesses, having this opportunity to have the informed consent about repetitive head impacts and the risks that they take I think will make a difference. So you did a phenomenal job, with it. I thank you for allowing the RL3 Foundation to be a part of it. And shout out to Representative Kimberly Daniels for believing in our vision and for understanding, because she had a son that played the NFL herself, who she, feels, she can kind of relate in some aspects to some of the symptoms and the concussions that he has experienced. So she's passionate about this as well. So appreciative and grateful for her to wanting to support and back this bill. And hopefully, as Florida has been doing great things in terms of trying to protect youth, they have the HCM, the hypertrophic cardiomyopathy bill that they kind of put into place. I think it's called the Second Chance Act with Who We Play For. So that takes effect next year, July 1, I think 2026, which will require students to get those EKGs so we can try to minimize the sudden death, of these players from unknown heart conditions that they have. Hopefully they see the value and the importance in the brain health aspect as well, just like we're trying to protect their hearts, that they see the value in protecting their brains as well, and that we're able to make some progress and get this bill passed on both sides of Congress.
Yeah, I mean, Tatiana, again, to the audience, it's all about, knowing what we didn't know. I mean, you're listening to two parents here that are, going through the worst pain that you can imagine because of something that was preventable. And,
Yes.
and I'll tell you, I'm sure you feel the same way, but my son would not play contact sports if I had another chat. I mean, maybe wait till high school if he really wanted to, but again, not knowing what I know now and what that's the whole purpose of the bill is if you're going to make a decision about your priceless treasure that love with it more than anything in this world that you'll die for, then you need to be informed. And I think that,
Yes.
and that goes to another point, Tatiana, is, what happened to us takes place thousands of times a year in this country. And we meet so many parents that just can't keep going, you know, and for you to keep going, I don't know what drives you. I know what drives me is I'm going to see that boy again. And I better put a smile on his face. I want to make him proud, but the fact that you're on your feet swinging like this is such a testimony to your strength. And it's so sorely needed because without parents that can tell this story, we don't have people that can learn. And I want to thank you for your resolution, your commitment, to your son, but not only that, to the sport that you are determined to make a sport, just like I am, that, and my that harmed our children. We're here to make it safer. Nobody's talking about football going away. I mean, we all know what it means to so many people, but it can be done differently and it can be done more safely. And it so needs passionate, powerful women like you out there. And I just want you to know that I recognize from the bottom of my heart your profound sense of love for your child. And I am so grateful that you were able to come on this show. And you are my partner. Your foundation, your coin that you gave me is my most treasured coin. And I have about 300 of darn things, but I love that coin.
Thank you.
And you are going to be part of everything we do. And so, as we get ready to close, why don't you please promote your foundation, yourself, your son? Well, how do people find you? How do people get a hold of the foundation? Tell us about that amazing weekend that you have every year. I was heartbroken. I missed it this year, but tell us all about yourself and Ray 3.
Well, thank you for those kind words, Bruce. I just have to give all honor and glory to God. He gives me the portion of strength that I need to get through each day because it's definitely not my own strength that carries me. It is the love for my child that I lost and the love for my other children that are still here that push and motivate me to try to help others to not know this fate. So they have the opportunity to reach out to the RL3 Foundation, and that's the RL, the number 3 foundation.com. to find out more information about what it is that we do. But essentially, we are supporting to provide safer youth sports, education regarding CTE and mental health related issues, related to CTE. We do an annual event called Motivation Weekend. It is the first weekend in June every year. So we are going into year 3 for 2026. So we are continuing to grow the event each year, but it includes the CTE ball. We've done brunch, but it's turned into a sneaker ball. That seems to have been the most popular event. People come out in their dresses, their suits with their sneakers, their favorite, sneakers on, and they are engaged in a great meal, but with great speakers, great doctors, families like ours who are able to tell stories based off of their experiences. They have an opportunity to ask questions and to engage with the speakers. So that is a great informative awareness event on CTE that we open with on Friday evening of the event. On Saturday, we do have football related events, but they are non-contact. We have them for elementary and middle school age kids. It's a football camp where they learn agility and speed and work and hand-eye coordination, things that they can do that don't require contact in terms of helping to develop those skills until they are 14 and of age or old enough to try to play contact. And then we also have our 7-on-7 tournament, which is for the high school's football teams. And we provide CTE prevention grants to those high school programs. As you mentioned, my husband is a high school football coach, and a lot of these programs are underfunded. And so because they're underfunded, they don't have necessary supplies and equipment that they need. Some of these schools are sharing helmets. Helmets are supposed to be reconditioned every year. There should be guardian caps that they can get, for those type of things during practice. So we provide that CTE prevention grant to both the winner and the runner-up of the 7-on-7 tournament so that they can use for those CTE eligible related purchases to help, improve their football programs. So that's Saturday, all the football stuff. And then on Sunday, we close with a music festival because as I mentioned, Ray Ray loved music, he loved football, and he loved kids. And music was his therapy. When he couldn't always deal with the symptoms he was experiencing, the memory loss, the confusion, some of the erratic behaviors and what have you, music was his way out. He could get a pad, he would write lyrics, he would perform. And so that was his therapy. So we used the music festival to bring everybody together as Ray Ray did in life from every walk of life. It's all different genres of music. It's gospel, it's country, it's R&B, it's hip hop, and there are bounce houses for the kids. There's food trucks. There are different games that can be played. And so we come out and we celebrate life. We celebrate what Ray Ray represented. We provide education and information with the vendors. We provide free Narcan. We have Narcan distribution out there. We have the fire department. We partner with the police department. So we have different health organizations out there sharing information about mental health and saving, trying to save our children and our young people through music. So it's a great time. So people can get information on the website. We are in the phase now of soliciting sponsors for next year's event. So anyone interested in getting involved, if you're related in that mental health space and you want to provide exposure to your products or service, then we are open to those calls right now as well. So hopefully we will continue, Bruce, you and I doing the things that we do. You know that you have a partner in me for life. However, I can support. You just need only call. Just need only ask. We will continue to lift each other through this unfortunate bond that we have been brought together with, but we will continue to make both Mac and Ray Ray proud.
Ma'am, thank you so much. And we will. And we are joined at the hip and we will keep moving. We just came up with an idea of creating a brain safe protocol for contact sports. Would love to sit down with your husband and see what his interpretation that might be, and it's all about, as long as we can reduce contact and not allow kids and tell kids don't play back-to-back concussive sports. Do what Ray actually told your kids to do, right? Play that track, go play that basketball, right? We can, if we could change the way we continue brain health, we could change so much in this country. And And yeah, I mean, hats off to you and the foundation. We will do everything and anything. We're going to be a big part of your event next week. I've been talking to Sue right now. And again, don't forget, we got Baltimore Ravens Stadium up December 13th. RL3's got its own booth up there. If you want to come up, we'd love to.
Wonderful. And make sure I get that information because, because we mentioned my day job is with Northrop Grumman, and we do a lot with veterans. We have a lot of veterans that work there. We have a veterans employee resource group called Veritas that I have to share information with. So I will make sure that I share all of that with all of them as well. And they do feature different organizations. So I make sure that I'm continuing to put the Mac Parkman Foundation at the forefront there because I work with a whole lot of veterans at Northrop Grumman.
No, I bet you do. Well, we'll get to it. Thank you for thinking of us, and can't wait to start pounding the doors in Tallahassee with you.
Yes, I don't know if they're ready.
I know there's one door in particular that I think we both need to knock on, but we're on it, man. I can't. Yeah, we're spreading the word here, and thank you so much, man. Tatiana, anything we can do, please let us know. God bless you. God bless your family and your mission. And we will talk.
Thank you for all that you do, Bruce.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Folks, another great episode and a very powerful one. Probably to date, my most favorite of this podcast. Unfortunately, please reach out to the RL3 Foundation. And for all of you out there, you're talking to two parents that will answer cell phones. If you've got a question about your kids or maybe your husband or wife is a little bit too crazy about these contact sports, I've got a free book on my website. Tatiana's got all kinds of information. Reach out to our foundations and we'll help fill your magazines for that fight, because that is the fight of your life right now, to protect your children. So please reach out to us. Don't forget about our app on the the HeadSafe app. HeadSmart app on the Google and Apple store. The Army Navy Games coming up December 13th. 100% of the money's raised goes towards veterans' mental illness and suicide prevention programs. We have fuel. We might have an AC/DC cover band coming up if they get their act together. You know how those bands are. And it's all you can eat, all you can drink. Great network. A bunch of awesome foundations like RL3 will be there. We look forward to coming to you. So like us, subscribe us, push us out there, support our foundations. And remember, your kids only have one melon. Take care of that puppy, all right? All right, God bless you all. We'll see you next time on Broken Brains with Bruce Parkman.